The members of the subcommittee, just for those taking notes: Tanya Anderson, Clint Dixon, I think he'll be here. Drew Eccles, he asked me about it, I think he'll be here. Frank Ginn, not sure if he's coming. Sonia Halpern and Emmanuel Jones. They may be enjoying Larry Walker's lunch. They may not be, because as of 12:55 it was not here. But we will call the Senate Subcommittee for Appropriations Transportation to order. And those of you in the room that know, but for the thousands of you watching, ladies and gentlemen, Senator Clint Dixon. For those of you watching, we are dealing with the amended budget, and that means we're halfway through our fiscal year. Chairman, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. How much is the state of Georgia's budget?
Billions of dollars.
$42 billion is the amended budget the House passed. It's a record budget here in the state. We're appropriating some of our reserve funds to some of the people in this room to deploy, hopefully in your district and my district. What's your number one transportation need in Gwinnett County?
Boy, that's a loaded question.
What's your number one road that needs widened? Ask it that way.
Man, there's several that come, but I guess I'll pick one I would love to get, which it's already planned, but 124 up by Mill Creek High School.
I'm letting you lobby. Don't go for one that's already planned. Go for one that...
Well, I'd like to get it sped up.
Oh, okay. What's the current timing?
I believe 2032.
That's a long way out.
Yeah.
When do you think it should be done?
Yesterday.
Okay. How much money is it? How much?
Just speaking to my
How
constituents.
much money is it?
I'd have to get that back. I'd have to get back to you on that, Mr. Chairman.
How long of a road is it?
That section would probably be like 4 or 5 miles. if I decide.
$200 million, Commissioner, ish.
I may be off on the.
I've handicapped that at probably about 30 million a mile for right-of-way construction.
Oh, even more. Okay.
For right-of-way construction.
All right.
It's just a few zeros and some commas.
Indeed. All right. Let's hear from DDS to start us off. We're going to be on page 1. If y'all can help us as you're kind of talking about your line items here, give us where you're at, the citation. Good afternoon. I'll turn you on. Witness 2. Frank Ginn, good to see you.
Always got to be on time.
Well, that applied to me, not to you.
I was on time somewhere.
How are you, Mr. Chairman?
Good. We're talking about, while she turns the page, we're talking about for the most important projects in our district. What would you say is the most important project?
The
Transportation in your district.
More money.
That's always the answer. How are you doing today?
I'm good today.
Good.
Thank you for asking.
Do you know
Hope
that
all
left
are.
turns yield to right turns?
I do.
And right turns should never have to yield to a left turn?
I did know that, but not from my role.
There you go.
Just from
There you go.
being a Georgia driver for several decades. But I did want to bring your attention to the red arrow. If there's a red arrow, you cannot turn
Yes.
right on that.
So
Correct.
why don't you go to a round dot? Make it easy for everybody else. A red
Well,
round dot.
so my issue is I know that and I adhere to that like all the time. But I get harassed because
People honking at you?
yeah, they're honking, they're going around, they're like rolling down windows and things as I'm stopped there.
It's
But
those New
if you could
Yorkers
just-
that moved down here.
Right, if you could just bring attention to that, that'd
You
be
ever get
great.
calls from people that are colorblind, so they just think it's an arrow to go?
Have not had that yet.
Be that guy.
All right, we're going to roll. I've got a 2 o'clock hard
Right,
stop.
so, but
Did Larry Walker's lunch get here yet, Chairman Dixon?
No, I'm starving.
Okay.
And do you have lunch for the commissioners?
We may. Depends what your budget comes in at.
Right. Well, we're not asking for a gajillion dollars like maybe some other agencies might, but we are pretty
No.
steady.
That
I'll
take
talk
years.
mostly about our agency. So again, thank you for all of your considerations over previous years. And so all those considerations have helped us maintain our customer service level. So this is our second decade being known as the Department of Driver Services. So we're celebrating that. It's our platinum year, so to speak. But overall volume has been higher, but wait times have been shorter, and our staff has been able to serve customers with that platinum level service, really because of technology and a lot of the considerations from you all, so thank you. So we have, let me see if this works. Yes, same mission statement, same core values, new commissioner, but again, we're delivering that same platinum service. Our average wait time was 6 minutes 10 last year, so that actually beat the previous year, so I'll take credit for that, being commissioner last year. We're still serving most of our customers, 99% of the customers within 30 minutes or less. So we're keeping our focus on wait times, quality of service, modern delivery of those services, but we're also focused on our team members as well and the safety of our team and the safety of our system. So at a glance, we have over 9 million valid drivers, over 400,000 valid commercial drivers. And at the end of 2025, there were almost 600,000 digital license users, but now we have surpassed that number. We're well over 600,000 users who have that mobile driver's license on their phones. We have 68 locations this year. Last year we had 67. We opened the Hazelhurst site last year. We have 12 commercial testing sites. We had 11 last year. And so that is with the addition of Hazelhurst in the last fall in September. That location employs 8 people down in Hazelhurst. Last year we served 4.1 million customers. Overall, that's 200,000 more than the previous year. So with more customers, of course, you have more face-to-face transactions, but you have more mail, more calls coming in. So there's just more work that has to be done when you talk about serving hundreds of thousands more customers in a particular year. Over 150,000 of those customers, 158,000 were served on kiosks throughout the state. So that is a piece of technology that expands our services and makes it accessible for people, whether they want to do simple transactions like renewals. In the grocery store locations, they're in over the yellow kiosks where we put our services, along with some of the tag and title services from DOR, are in 81 locations. Then we have self-serve kiosks within our locations. They are in 23 different locations right now throughout the state of Georgia. So those are sort of like a self-checkout. You come in, you might want to take your own picture. You can do that. A lot of people actually love that. I have just people who, personal stories about how service was so great because they could go in and use that kiosk. And our team members assist the customers with the use of that kiosk, but they can assist 4 and 5 customers at one time by helping them with a picture or helping them navigate that kiosk. 1.1 million customers were served through online services or through our app, so that is remotely. And you have 2.9 million customers served face-to-face. And again, the remaining about 30% of the customers that we served last year were served through some sort of remote service, through a kiosk or through online services or through our app. And then again, on our peak days, like Tuesdays, Thursdays, 16,000 customers that we could see throughout the state in one particular day. So we'll move on to what we're here to talk about is our budget. And so our budget is in 3 different categories: administration, license issuance, regulatory compliance. So we'll start with our administration program. On page 1, line items 118.1 through 118.3 on your track sheet. And so we'll address the salary supplement. So we're very grateful to Governor Kemp's salary supplement additions. This is very helpful for retention. It made our team members happy, so it's really good for morale. But we are requesting $114,000 to accommodate the one-time salary supplements for these employees in this particular program. And that is line item 118.1. Line item 118.2, we are requesting $150,000 to continue to comply with federal mandates from our federal partners. And so a lot of this includes notifications, mail, system changes to comply with certain federal mandates from federal partners like FMCSA.
Walk me through that really quick. What's the money used for specifically?
This particular amount is really through notifications. If you see, the slide says CDL federal mandate notification. So this year, we had the National Registry 2, which we affectionately call NR2. We had exclusive electronic exchange, Triple E is what we call that. We have names for all of them and acronyms for everything. Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, DAC is what we call it. Some people say DOC, depending on what part of the state they're from. But these are all measures implemented and required by FMCSA to ensure that, for instance, the National Registry ensures that the med certs that we are receiving from the drivers are actually from legitimate doctors, and those are doctors
Where are the
who
dollars
are
going?
registered. The dollars are going to, no, for notifications.
Meaning?
Mail.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
So the reduction, and then line item 118.3, reduction for state health benefit plan. And that's just to reflect the reduction in the employer contribution. Next slide. We're moving on to license issuance program. That is on page 2, line items 119.1 through 119.3. So, line item 119.1, we are requesting $1.7 million to accommodate the one-time salary supplement for the employees in this program. This is our largest program in our budget. Page 2, line item 119.2, we are also requesting $1.3 million to accommodate increased volume. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier. We saw a higher volume this past year, and we are continuing to see higher volume. And so this leads to more transactions, which is more interaction with customers, more resources, more mail being sent, more cards being produced. So that increases the need for us for resources when we do see increased volume. There are some predictables and some ways to project this volume when you talk about renewals and people that we expect to come in, but then there are also the unpredictables. They are new to Georgia. There are people who are moving and need to replace and have new licenses also. And then also on page 3, line item 119.3, we are requesting $150,000 to continue our armed guard services at certain locations, at 5 locations. The rates have increased with our armed guard services in those locations.
How much are we paying per
hour?
per location? This is
We have-
shocking. This
we
is like
have-
actually shocking to me that we have to have armed guards at essentially a DMB location.
Right, it's
What's
probably
the
for several reasons,
yeah?
right? So,
is these angry customers?
well, it's because anyone comes through the door, right? It depends on the location, but sometimes it doesn't. We had an incident in a location that doesn't have high volume, which did not, we didn't think we had the need for armed services in that particular location in South Georgia. But we had a customer who would come in with a weapon and then take that weapon off their hip, put it on the counter while taking a written test, while also cheating on that written test. So what happens when our people see them cheating? Hey, test is terminated, we see you cheating, you have to leave. But that was sort of an intimidation tactic from that particular customer. Came in twice to do that. So when we're dealing with the general public, that's where the need comes from. We don't know who will be irate because maybe they don't have the documents they need to have and they don't meet our requirements, so we have to turn them away and with instructions. We have had customers have altercations with themselves at locations. Not necessarily with our team members, but it can happen with our team members. But definitely when you're dealing with the general public and when you're talking about millions who are coming in, again, we served 2.9 million last year face-to-face, 16,000 on a peak day. So there's the high occurrence for some, a need for some security. We actually had one location where that armed guard saved the day and was restraining that customer until local police authorities could arrive.
Okay, let's keep going. We've got a couple minutes left for you if we're going to try to stay on track here.
Oh, sure. License issuance program continued, page 3, line item 119.4. We are requesting $139,000 to accommodate increasing leases at 9 locations throughout the state of Georgia. Page 3, line item 119.5, we're requesting $185,000 for continued compliance with GTA security and infrastructure. Page 3, line item 119.6, we are requesting $428,499,000 to support our back-end system and drives. Next slide. Still on page 3, line item 119.7, we're requesting $2.4 million to support personal services for decreased turnover. So it's a gift and a curse, right? So you want decreased turnover, but then that leads to people who also get promoted and receive standard increases in salary supplements and things like that. So again, page 3, line item 119.8 just reflects the reduction in the employer contribution for the state health benefit plan for this program. Next program is regulatory compliance. We are on page 4, line item 120.1. We are requesting $27,000 to accommodate the one-time salary supplements for the employees in this program. Page 4, line item 120.2 reflects the reduction in the employer contribution rate for the state health benefit plan. So we're now moving on to the bonds and the capital bonds and projects track sheet. I believe it's section 50, page 2. Our bond request consists of requests for funds to support facilities and upgrades for next gen. So page 2, line item 371.28 is $1 million request for time clock and equipment replacements needed for software updates. Page 2, line item 371.29, we are requesting $1 million for physical security for customer and staff, and that is for facility safety and hardening initiatives. Page 2, line item 371.30, it's our request for $430,000 for counter replacement statewide. There are old counters that are 20-plus years old that are damaged and need replacing. And that concludes my time. Thank you very much for your attention
Thank you.
and your questions. I appreciate that.
Yeah, walk me through the 2 point whatever million it was on the,
For the-
essentially people are staying longer, they're making more money. How's that coming up in the amended budget with such a high number? Because I would see if 1 or
Right.
2 or 3 people were staying in kind of return, that's a big number of a delta of salary. And I'm
Right,
confused on
it's decreased turnover, and I don't know if you recall, salary supplements were given a couple years ago, and this is also to make up for sort of a shortfall in that. So what happens is it's sort of, when we talk about trying to predict things, it's predicting the number of people who will receive that salary supplement. And so there was a shortfall, so to speak, in that prediction. And so that also makes up for that too, because those people are included as well.
Can you give us a breakdown of that? Because I'm not, sorry, I'll turn the mic. Can you give us a breakdown of that? Because that's, I'm still not following you. When you say that it's a shortfall of what? You knew people's salaries at the start of the fiscal year,
Right.
right?
Right.
The delta on that salary shift is what's confusing me.
Right. It's really to accommodate, so what we've been doing over the past, I guess, since that time for that shortfall is sort of, we've been using money for that, and we're at the point where we still have to make up for that in our budget.
Okay, define that for me again.
Define what? If you could
That,
be more
you're
specific,
saying
would
that,
help.
so I'm not sure what that
Right.
is.
So, yeah, I'll let our budget director speak to that.
All right,
Yeah,
you're
I'll let
on
her
number
speak
1.
to
Hello.
She'll use
So
the
over
right
the last
words.
couple of years, we've actually increased positions. We went from 76% turnover, I believe it is, to we're at 38 just for our DEs. So last year, we were actually kind of in a shortfall. We had some projects that were delayed, and we were able to find money in the funding last year to fund those particular positions. This year, those projects are on track. Those projects will pay out this year. We do not have any projects or delays in the budget to be able to fund the shortfall that we had last year. So what we're projecting this year is the increase from last year and the already increase we're seeing coming into this year. What she was referring to on the other portion of this is in 2023, I believe we were funded for 731 positions. We're now staffing around 900. So those 150, we never got the salary increases for those. The base was increased, but we didn't get the funding for the extra 150 that we're currently staffing.
Okay. So this description here is not inaccurate, but it's incomplete. It's more than just decreased turnover. This is actually, you guys have increased headcount
Yes.
overall that you're looking to
And
fund.
we're also, if you notice on the card production piece of this, we're producing approximately 1 million to 1.5 million additional cards from 25 to 26. We follow a trend. The card production request for this, you'll see there's an extra 250. That card production is followed by a trend. We follow it closely. There are things that are out of our control, but the things that we are requesting are actual, factual. I took last year's 2025 actual increase to the card production, and then we ran a report for actual driver's licenses and IDs that are expiring, that are expected to be renewed this year. That's a request for that, but with that all together, we're projecting to still stay high this year and anticipating still the 1.5 million additional level for this year. So we're also coming up on Real ID where people have to come into the centers to take their photos. And so we have to have people in seats to be able to take those photos. They can't do them online. They can't do them via kiosk. They have to come actually face-to-face with our staffing.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Any other questions? Great. Awesome. Thank you all so much for
Thank
being
you.
here. Congrats on a good first year.
Thank you.
All right, we will have Russell McMurray come up next. We'll hear from GDOT starting on page 6. Senator Anderson, what's the most, what would you say is the number one either intersection or road widening need in your district? You've got an audience with.
Thank you, because I
with-
haven't gotten it yet, and I've requested it. So I am I-20 East,
Okay.
everything I-20 East. Have some work that needs to be done in the city of Stonecrest. Have a lot of fencing that needs to be done in Rockdale, so I-20 East. Thank you,
Succinctly and well said.
thank you.
Commissioner, how you doing?
I'm great, Senator. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you,
Take us
Mr.
away.
Chairman. I
I've
got
got about
Angela.
20 minutes for you, just so you can plan your time.
We're going to go fast, and
Great.
we won't stop at any yield signs, by the way. So I have Angela Whitworth here, our state treasurer, or state DOT treasurer as well. Just a point of privilege, I want to say a big shout out to the men and women at GDOT. It's a blue sky day today, maybe 60 degrees outside, but the past few weeks have been very cold, and we've spent almost 3 weeks dealing with snow and ice across the entire state, all the way from Savannah to North Carolina. So certainly want to appreciate the work they do. I'm going to jump in real quick, and you've got your flip over to the second page. Just a quick federal update. When I stood before Joint Appropriations Committee, we told you that we didn't have a federal budget passed at that time. I think you've all seen that the federal budget did pass, which helps us now to have full federal appropriations for the rest of this federal fiscal year, which was very important because we're at a point of had paid it forward with state dollars, getting the IOUs from the federal government, but now we've got that, which is good. But the only other thing I show you there is the I'm Just the Bill. Some of you are old enough to know what that is on the right side. Chairman, I don't think you are, but on the right side there, I'm Just a Bill. We do or seek a federal transportation reauthorization by the end of September this year, and so that's going to be very important. I remind you that our federal transportation funding is about 1.5 to 1.6 billion to the state of Georgia as it relates to surface transportation. So that's about 40%, no small feat. Over on the third page, I showed you this at Joint Appropriations. Just a reminder that the cost of doing business has continued to escalate over the last 5 years nationally, from about 2020 to 2024, about 70%. So it outpaced CPI on an index. This red line is an index The blue line is CPI, which we all understand and talk about on the news all the time. But you can see the cost of highway construction has outpaced even CPI, producer price index, and employment cost index as well. So the moral of the story, things are costing tremendously more. On slide 4, we boil that down to how's that impacting us here in Georgia. And you can just see that our cost increases for fiscal year 21 through 25 have increased pretty significantly. Resurfacing a 2-lane road has increased by 51%. It's about $250,000 a mile to do a 2-lane road. Interstates are more than that. Urban widening, 2 to 4 lanes, increased 99% in cost. Rural widening is about 90%. On down the line. Roundabouts, we like roundabouts, but the pavement, just the pavement, the impervious surface has increased by 47%. Bridge replacements by about 93%. In the little bottom table there are just some of the materials components that go into overall construction costs. So we're just showing you that we've actually outpaced some of the national averages of construction cost indexed over the last 4 years. And then as on slide 5, how that relates to increased costs have outpaced our revenue. It's been now 11 years since HB 170 was passed, and we put the National Highway Construction Cost Index and indexed that to our amended budget. So it's about a 30% gap of loss of buying power, even though the state budget has increased. Now, this is amended budget without the additional state general fund money. I'll come back to that in a moment. But you can just see we've continued to lose buying power. I think the real purpose of those slides were to set up this slide on slide 6. As it relates to the State Transportation Improvement Program that the Director of Planning's responsibility for is putting together the 4-year physically constrained project list of all. I've taken note of all your projects here. And I think Janine Miller should be here. Hopefully she took note of those to plan those. And so, but here's the reality. When costs go up, we adjust our project cost estimates, but each year has to be physically constrained. So that means we push a project out of the bottom of the stack that goes into the next year. And when we push it into the next year with increased project cost in that year, plus the project that we moved out of the prior year, it creates a cascading event of pushing projects out in the future. And as I joked around there in joint appropriations, I'm pretty sure that each of your projects is the #1 project in your state, in the state for you, and as it should be. But we don't like having to come to you and say that your project has now been delayed due to these increased costs, and we're pushing your project out. Now, that's the reality that we really face right now, but I also want to give you the good news of what you've done collectively with the governor's budget over the last 2 years for this additional general fund money has really made a difference. And I really do want to commend and thank the Senate, the House, and the governor's budget for that additional state general fund money over the last 2 budget years. So on slide 7, you can actually see what that impact, again, the index to the National Highway Construction Cost Index and what our budget is. And with the additional $1.5 billion and the additional $1 billion in amended 24 and 25 respectively, you can see that we actually sort of gain ground that in those budget years. Now, the difference between 2020 and 2024, we didn't make up all that ground. But let me remind you how we utilize that $1.5 billion and that $1 billion in amended 24 and 25, because we want to show you where we placed it and then how much of it we've used. Just going back to amended 24 and 25 on slide 8. We had $98 million added for airport aid. About half of that went to a replacement airport in Griffin-Spalding County that if we did not have the state money at the time, we would have lost Federal Aviation Administration funding for that project. So that was a big capture. The local roads funding, which goes to cities and counties on a formula basis with no match, again, $250 and $265 million respectively, has been a win for cities and counties. I think I've had 0 complaints about that at all. That's very important because the cities and counties experience the same cost increases we've experienced. Very importantly, $500 million or $500 million and $500 million for the freight program in amended 24 and 25, and I'll come back to that and talk about what that is, where that money's going. And capital construction projects, 593 in the amended 24, 593 million, which allowed us to advance 44 projects. In fact, 25 of those projects were those ones that I talked about that had got pushed out because we didn't have funding. So we were able to move 25 projects back in to FY '24 and '25 and actually sped those up by 40 project years. So we actually had cascaded projects, not 1 year, but 2 or 3 years out in the future, and we're able to bring those back in. And we are actually able to advance 19 new phases of a project, whether it's design or right-of-way, if it wasn't construction, that we were able to accelerate projects because we didn't have the funding for them to get things started on 19 projects. So that was a huge impact in Amendment 24. Capital maintenance, again, I gave you the stat, 51% increase in resurfacing. And so that $50 million sort of increased our budget by about 30% to help us try to get back into that resurfacing number. And then lastly, let's not forget Hurricane Helene, which those remnants are still there if you ride around parts of the state. That $200 million kept us in business that we could contract and could use vendors to help the debris cleanup across the entire state, which otherwise we would have had to shut down our maintenance activities. So very important. So that's how we deployed Amendment 24 and 25 state general fund money. And on slide 9 is showing you that those dollars were put to work very fast. The capital, 100% of the money for capital maintenance has been expensed. These are not contracted, but this is actually money paid out. The Amendment 24 capital construction, 69% of that money's been expensed. In 24 and 25, that $500 million in each of those years, only collectively 35% of that money's been paid out. But I want to show you why, because most of that money goes to the big three, of which is on slide 10. That is to widen I-16 from I-95 about 31 miles up into Bryan County, at least to where the Hyundai Meta plant is. So we'll go from 4 lanes to 6 lanes. It's about 23% trucks there. It's to freight traffic out of the port. We anticipate that will reduce truck delay by about 56%. We will receive bids on this project. It's a design build bid variable scope. So we're going to say, we've got $516 million. You tell me how far you can go. And we hope to go past the Meta plant on up to toward the Statesboro exit at State Route 67. The next big project is $74 million for widening I-95 to 8 lanes in the Savannah area, again from I-16 to South Carolina. South Carolina DOT is underway of upgrading their 4 lanes to 8 lanes. They're actively under construction now, and this will allow us to marry up to their 8 lanes so we don't have a bottleneck on the border and to keep freight moving in Savannah. And lastly, out of the amended state general fund money, prior budgets, is State Route 96, which is the east-west connectivity between I-16 and I-75 just south of Macon. It's really the first east-west place you can get below Macon, and so that helps freight flow. It completes the last 9 miles of a 25-mile corridor that connects those two together down in Houston and Twiggs County, and we received bids on that in June, and I-95 we bid later this calendar year as well. So I think you can see we've taken those state general funds and deployed them and put them to strategic use very quickly. Now let me jump up to slide 11 and 12. We'll just jump into the amended 26 budget and start with really the historical amount of state general fund money, $2.3 billion in the governor's budget to make some strategic investments. On slide 12, you can see that this represents the House changes. The governor's recommendation was $100 million to invest in rural bridge replacements and to support ag and timber industry, and that projects that we could deliver this fiscal year or next fiscal year. So on the next slide, you can see a map that shows 26 total projects across 19 counties that shows you where these strategic investments will be made. Just spread up these projects by about 2 years on average. So we were able to have bridges that we didn't have funding for, or funding was in a future year, to bring them in. And the way we arrived at this data set of these bridges were we looked at a bridge being within 10 miles of a timber or ag industry that we had on the replacement list that we can get replaced. So we tried to be strategic in that to obviously work and support the timber industry and our agribusiness industry as well. So that shows you a graphic, and we can provide a listing of where those bridges are. Now, that's based on the $100 million list. The House version was $85 million, and I'll speak to that in a moment. On the next slide, on 14, was in the governor's recommendation, $200 million to advance projects on State Route 316, which is all about improving safety and improving the travel times in a very growing area. And so our goal there is to basically upgrade the intersections either to interchanges, overpasses, or some other access to get rid of the at-grade crossings where you cross over the median. So we've been well underway for the last 6 or 7 years on this 39-mile corridor to do that very thing. But the $200 million goes to us being able to advance and working toward the remaining projects that need to be done on that corridor to eliminate these at-grade crossings. We have, and why that's important is 316 unfortunately has a tremendous amount of fatal crashes. In the last 10 years, 65 fatal crashes on that corridor, which is significant. In fact, 6 intersections along 316 are in our top 50 crash locations in the state. 3 more are in the top 100. And then when you look at crashes, you look at severity. Obviously, fatal is the worst, but also serious injuries. There's 4 intersections that have higher than the statewide average for severity, and 1 has a double the statewide average of severity. So when the crashes happen at these intersections, they're very bad. We have 18 intersections that are currently being addressed in one form or the fashion. The $200 million helped us to address the 13 remaining intersections. So that's what that money is for. That investment goes a long way to make that a reality. On slide 16, again, in the governor's recommendation, another $250 million for cities and counties through the Local Roads Administration Program. So ACCG and GMA have been very supportive of that and goes a long way to cities and counties. On slide 17 is the largest add from State General Fund is to address the I-75 South express lanes here south of Atlanta. The House number was $1.716 billion. That represents about an $80 million reduction in the budget number from the governor's recommendation. And, you know, I joked at joint appropriations of, are those express lanes ever going in the wrong direction for you? And I got a chuckle, so I'm assuming that was an affirmation that that's a true statement. In fact, when the express lanes are going in the direction that they're going, you get about a 67% increase in capacity for going from 3 lanes to 5 lanes. So the lanes, the general purpose lanes, often look sort of empty when they're going in the correct direction. And they are going in the correct direction for the people in that direction. So our goal is to basically get rid of the reversible system and build 2 lanes in each direction that are barrier separated for safety and operations. Now, the 1.716 with the House number and the 1.796 from the governor's recommendation is not the total cost of the project. This amount of money is necessary to do the design, to do the environmental permitting, to do the right-of-way acquisition. We will have to buy right-of-way, and it will go toward helping us leverage and to finance the remaining portion of the project. Our goal, again, is we know that the 12 miles that exist today, congestion starts south of that location every day. We know that these need to be extended further south. So the bigger this number, the more likely that we can extend the project further south so that you don't get into congestion before you can ever get into the express lanes that begin there at Bill Gardner Parkway, at State Route 155 on the south end of the project. So
At the Florida line.
Florida line would be fine, but we're going to have another 0 or 2, another comma and a 0 or 2.
Commissioner, do you have any visibility into the change the House made? Was that part of discussions that y'all had in terms of the slight adjustment from the governor's
Those dollars got deployed elsewhere into the budget when I'll go through that where they went to. But that sort of got moved out of there. At joint appropriations, I said that's the minimum amount of money, and that's where we've got to stay, is we need that amount to try to, again, leverage as much as we can.
Sorry, you said which number is the minimum amount? The governor's number?
The governor's,
Yep.
right.
So, yeah, we know some went to airport aid, there's some short line rail
That's
ads and
correct.
stuff like that.
That's
but-
correct.
Okay.
So that's the information there. Janine may have more in her presentation. She has a lot more data and facts about the criticality of this corridor and some of the data from the SERTA's operations and the numbers they've seen. Going very fast in view of time, let's jump into the budget itself. On slide 18 is just a sort of a wrap-up, a roll-up of the total budget. The $71.6 million add in excise is based on the audited collections, so that brings us 2.54 in excise. No changes in trust fund fees from transit or transportation because those are on a 2-year look back, so that won't be adjusted until FY27. And then the state general fund is those items I just talked about, the $2.2 billion roughly. I will show you that the net reduction out of our budget from the House changes was about a $77.5 million net. We talked about the 80 coming out, but some of the other things netted out 77.5 reduction out of their overall budget. On slide 19 is just a graphical representation of where is the money used, and we've rolled a couple of budget programs together. Capital construction, capital maintenance is the first one, and payments to SERTA. Payments to SERTA is so high because that money for state route, I-75 South express lanes is in payments to SERTA. That's why that number, second bar chart, is so high. But you can just see sort of, we always like to show you where these dollars are being deployed. And as you can see, most all of it is going to actually building or maintaining some transportation infrastructure. Let me jump into the actual budget itself, and that picks up over on page 3, I believe it is. It's page 6. But let me start on this slide 20 at the top here. GO bond debt, I just want to highlight that it is reducing, but we're still carrying overall over about $1.5 billion of bond debt in totality. So that is a good news that bond debt is reducing. And let me highlight airport aid. Chairman, you mentioned it. The money coming into airport aid there, $15 million that came out from the I-75 project. But also let me highlight on line 349, 1 and 2, just like Commissioner DDS, we are very appreciative of the $2,000 pay supplement, one-time pay supplement for our employees. And so that's reflected on 349.1. And then on 349.2, there's a reduction in state health benefit plan effective June 1, 2026. Now, sort of interestingly, in GDOT, our personal services are generally from motor fuel money. And so the net effect of the additional money for the 2,000 in pay increase and the reduction for the state health benefit plan sort of nets out. So it sort of cuts us short of being able to fully fulfill the $2,000 pay supplement to employees. And I think it's just the unique nature of GDOT that most all our salaries are paid from motor fuel and not state general funds, since it's dedicated to us. Now, the exception to that is airport aid, rail, waterways, and transit, which are general funded, but all our other positions. So I'm not going to go line by line of each of those changes in each of our budget programs, but I just call attention to that. I think I understand the intention, but the reality is that's going to cut us short on the $2,000 pay supplement to staff. So airport aid, we've talked about the $15 million add there. Capital construction on line 3, page 7, which is 350.1 through 350.3. A total add of $321.9 million into that. Again, we put a lot of the motor fuel excise adjustment into that. That also reflects the $200 million for State Route 316. And also, one of the things we asked the House to help us with was the rural bridge money was in capital maintenance. We asked them to move that up into capital construction to be in better budget alignment with that program. So,
walk me through the number change. Was that a request from you all as well, or is that the $100 million?
Well, we'd asked that the $100 million be moved up into capital, from capital maintenance to capital construction.
Yep.
Because replacing a bridge falls into the capital construction program.
But it's 85 that they moved.
But they moved 85,
Right.
correct. 15 went out to airport aid, as we
And that was,
talked about.
do you have, I know you have to walk a fine line here. Was that something you guys specifically discussed in your hearing? Is that a request from the department, or is that a reflection of a House priority?
The, not the change, the move
I
was our
understand that.
request.
Yeah. Do you have an opinion on the change?
We will use every appropriated dollar we have the most effectively we can.
Has there been anything identified in airport aid other than just kind of our additional, we recognize we kind of underfund airport aid?
Correct.
Typically.
We have not tried to tie the 15 million to a project yet.
Okay.
But we're usually about 3 to 4 times overprescribed for airport aid.
Yep.
Okay. Let me just call your attention again down to LMIG, a $7 million add. That's based on the increase in excise, so that's reflective of 10% increase in excise. The local roads administration on the slide there, as we've talked about, the additional $250 million. That's just reflected in the budget itself. If we flip over to page 21 on the slide deck, just to, again, highlight rail. We've had a little conversation about rail. $4.25 million was added by the House to address our state-owned rail lines. We have 6 lease lines and about 540 miles of short line rail that the state of Georgia DOT is responsible for. And so that goes to that item. Routine maintenance, very important. As I bragged on the men and women of GDOT that worked on snow and ice, that's where that budget is. On page 15, which is 360.1 and 360.2, again, we increased from the motor fuel amount by the 26.23 million total. 21.89 million of that was from the excise. Again, the same thing on maintenance. The prices of commodities and materials have gone up, so we bumped that budget up as well. And we contract probably for about half of the activities we do as well, just overall contracting and materials prices. So I just wanted to address that. So the total increase was 26.2, bringing that total to about $589 million. And then lastly down there is payments to CERTA. We'll leave that for the CERTA director to talk about in her budget. But that's reflective of the express lane project being added in payments to CERTA, since it's already a functioning CERTA operated corridor. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the report. I always like to end with that slide that the future is not something we enter. The future is something we create. So we appreciate you providing the resources for create the future we want without yield signs and 124 being widening and I-20 love and fences and all those things. And I believe Senator again just said more money, so more money his way.
It's a good memory.
All right.
I just want to clarify on this I-75. It's your position that that's the minimum that you guys need. The governor's number
right.
is the number that you guys need.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Because
great.
we're going to have to leverage that hard to
Okay.
make those express lanes get rid of their directional nature.
Great. We're running really tight on time, so I apologize. If anybody have any pressing questions for the commissioner, thank you all for being here. While Janine comes up, Senator Gooch, everyone has had the opportunity to do this. I'll give you the opportunity. What's the most significant infrastructure project in your district that you'd like to bring to the attention of the influencers in this room?
My influence is changing from Blue Ridge to Bainbridge.
Okay.
So it's all of the above. So what's important for you is important for me.
That's a good campaign line right there. Blue Ridge to Bainbridge.
That's right.
All right.
Anticipating it.
Ms. Miller, how are you doing today?
We're doing great. Thank you for having me. I know you all are short on time, and I'll be quick. Lot
Just
of data.
really
but-
quickly, do you know
Yes,
what
sir.
OCGA 40-6-71 says?
No, sir, I don't know. I don't think that is I don't think that's a
It
transportation.
says the driver of a vehicle intending to turn left within an intersection shall yield the right of way to any vehicle. Now, I notice a lot of right turn yield signs all over the state. It's a uniquely Georgia phenomenon. I've been all over the world, certainly been all over America. I don't see them the way I see them here. So let me know, maybe you and the commissioner can get together, what budget line item we need to touch to get rid of these
Eliminate
yield
all stop
signs.
signs, make them all yield signs.
Or roundabouts.
Roundabouts.
Get the roundabouts.
Roundabouts.
There are yield signs at roundabouts, which does actually make sense. That makes sense.
If you totally get rid of stop signs, you got it fixed.
There you go. All right, take us away, Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Senators. I believe you got the printout of the PowerPoint in front of you, and I'll go through the clicker here as well. The amended 26 budget for CERTA includes, of course, the I-75 South upgrade project that we've talked about. I wanted to give us a special attention to an appropriation, the amended 25 budget that you all gave to us last year out of the Transportation Trust Fund. That increased our GTIB, Transportation Infrastructure Bank dollars, to $46 million. That was a one-time appropriation. Grants and loan applications are now being accepted through Friday for roadways, but we've extended for airports out until next Friday, February 20th. It's the first time we've had the opportunity to support airport projects, and we wanted to give airports a little more time to get their applications together. And we're working hand in glove at CERTA with GDOT. We are looking to the intermodal division at GDOT to continue to be the airport experts in our state. So look forward to receiving applications over the next couple of weeks. Without further ado, I want to tell you about I-75 South. Of course, you all are aware of how important freight and logistics is for our state. Since the governor took office, this is January 2019 through June 30, 2025, $113 billion of private investment has been announced in the state of Georgia, and 2,100 of those businesses were what we call logistics enabled. In other words, it requires inbound cargo, outbound product, on trucks or trains to get to their destination. That's 88% of the total. $74 billion of investment that has begun to create and will continue creating a total of 157,000 jobs around the country, according to a study done several years ago out of UGA. That is for logistics-enabled companies, $100 billion of sales and output per year for logistics-enabled companies. Our transportation network is critical to their success in operations, employing Georgians, and making a profit. All of that is going to become compromised as Metro Atlanta's traffic continues to worsen. It's the 7th worst in the country last year, a report from a transportation data company called INRIX, 16th worst in the world. In the past 2 years, we've had a 23% increase in hours lost to traffic, 3rd highest in the U.S. However, the two cities, metro areas that are ahead of us are Baltimore in this time frame and Philadelphia. Not cities you'd expect to have worse growing traffic than we do. The INRIX company provided information about why they believe Baltimore had a problem. The Francis Scott Key unfortunate collapse of that bridge caused inordinate traffic in that metro area. And then Philadelphia, as the number 2 highest growth, they had safety issues with their rail system and other growth pressures there, including freight. If it weren't for those 2 very unique events, Metro Atlanta would have been the worst growth in traffic in the country since 2023. 75 hours lost to traffic per person in Metro Atlanta. That's 50% higher than the national average. Here's what that looks like in a graphic format. On the left is red and green. Since 2019, if the roadway is green, these are state routes, traffic got better. That was not the case on most roadways from 2019 to 2025. This is in the middle of the day. Basically, the population of the city of Newark, New Jersey, moved to Metro Atlanta in this 6-year time window. On the right side, it shows the gradient of where there's less of a change in yellow to more of a change. And I-75 South is a big part of this problem. Now, remember, this is not rush hour. This is the middle of the day. When these lanes are being exchanged in direction, they're being turned in the opposite direction by our partners at GDOT. So we have done a great deal of work on this corridor. As we know, reliable trips are important. These lanes are a good choice for commuters throughout the corridors where we have express lanes open and available. So in that same period of time, 2023 to 2025, that 2-year window, we've had a nearly 13% increase in our express lane trips. A little zoom in here on I-75 South. You can see that we have 12-mile corridor here, 5 million trips last year, and an 84% of growth in those trips since it opened in 2018. The average toll is $2.45. This is the corridor where we are hoping to invest. This is what it looks like. If you happen to look on your Google Maps and you're trying to get through the corridor, you'll see northbound in the morning. This is both of these trips are northbound. In the green, of course, is in the morning when the lanes are going in that northbound direction, and it typically takes 10 to 16 minutes to get through. But northbound, if you're trying to come into Metro Atlanta from South Georgia in the afternoon, you have no option around the traffic. And so typically takes 14 to 26 minutes. That is for one person, but you multiply that by 100,000 people, roughly, a day that cannot get through that corridor on an express lane northbound. It really adds up, and we see these problems abounding. Here's what that looks like to us as the toll operators, and this is thanks to GDOT cameras. On the left, when those lanes are closed in that direction, you can see all the traffic on those general purpose or free lanes. On the right, all the cars and trucks while the lane is going in the opposite direction. No option. But more capacity would equal more flow. As the commissioner said, a 67% increase in lanes in when available in those directions can get through actually about 70% more traffic. All traffic, cars and trucks. Of course, we have a report card sort of view at Georgia DOT in our model out to 2050. These lanes, the general purpose lanes in this corridor, critical stretch of I-75, will be in failing almost every hour of the day. No option to get through there. And that's just what we can predict. We know that crashes happen, but we can't predict when and where. And so all of the models, all of the data, all of the Google Maps can never indicate when a crash will happen and really bog down your journey through there. We know that today people have to plan 80% more time to traverse the corridor. And the real data, there's a data source that we are very, very reliant on called RITIS, Regional Integrated Transportation Information System. It is an incredibly rich data source. It told us that in December, the most recent full month that we have data available, 193 vehicles use the corridor per day, 334,000 vehicle hours of delay. That is in 1 month. And that was 9.3 hours lost per person to traffic at a cost of $15.5 million just for that month. So when we can get 70% more vehicles through the lane, it's going to make a big difference, and for all of Georgia. On the right, you can see the map. You see where the corridor is right there in the central part of the state. And if a county is shaded in gray, it has dependence upon that corridor for coming and going through central Georgia. And like I said, it's not just cars, it's trucks. 18 to 20% of the vehicles are trucks, carrying $620 million of daily freight commodity value. So over the course of a year, $226 billion of freight moves through this corridor. That is 23% of the state's freight. Not of Metro Atlanta's freight, but of the state's freight going through this corridor. And that is going to increase by 68% in the coming years and coming decades. We also take a look at American Trucking Associations does research nationwide, indicated how bottlenecks affect truck delay and cost to the consumer throughout the country. This is not a map that Georgia wants to be lit up on, and we're actually lit up more than any other state but Texas. Texas is the only state that has more freight bottlenecks than Georgia. Of the top bottlenecks that we have, I-75 south in Henry County, South Metro, is the only one we don't have a plan to address. You can see at 285 and 75 and 85 on the north end, we are working on a P3 procurement for express lanes that will address those interchanges. Under construction right now on I-285 is I-20 on the east and I-20 on the west side. This is the only bottleneck that we do not have addressed in our state. And it is known as the worst freight corridor bottleneck in the U.S., even though it's number 12. 1 through 11 are all interchanges. This is the worst corridor in the country. And it's just going to get worse. Metro Atlanta will be growing, adding 1.8 million people by 2050. That's 6 times the number of people that moved here since 2019 in the next 25 years. So we know that traffic on this corridor itself will double by 2050, further worsening the options to get through. That concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the committee? I'll make a comment before we close, and that is that, did you have a question? You got an alligator arm over there, barely saw you move your finger. All right, go ahead. Senator again.
Jenny, I want to thank you for all you do. A couple things that I'd like to get you to, I know you got those bottlenecks. I'm a big believer that you can buy right away and do magic inside there. I watched as a native Georgian for a lot of years, watched what you've done to the downtown connector. Said where it was 4 lanes. Said as a kid growing up, said three lanes going one way and 3 lanes going the other. Said and I was like, okay, so I can see what you can do, but that's a very expensive way to fix it because you get right away and all the things there. I want to know how much you do to look for alternate routes, where we can go through the countryside. And yeah, it's an impact to a lot of people, but it's an impact that for the most part, it's good for the communities to have alternate routes instead of when they have a wreck on I-75 in Middle Georgia, said it doesn't impact everybody if there's alternate ways to go. And would you address a little bit of that? And the other thing I do want to mention is your app for the toll lanes, hot lanes. Please fire your vendor and fire somebody that can fix it, because it is the worst app in the world. I can have these 2 in the car with me, hand my phone to one of them, and they can't do anything with it. And that's not good planning. So please get rid of your vendor, whoever that is.
I've heard of your challenges with the app, Senator, and I apologize for that. There is a state law that says people cannot use their phone while they're driving.
These 2 could be in the car with me, and they can use the phone. I just need the app to work.
If you're willing to give Chairman Dolezal your PIN to get into your phone, I think we could probably work that out. Thank you for your comments to understand the problem.
But on
Yes.
the other routes, would you address that just a little bit as far as alternate methods? How much studying do you do on that kind of stuff, and kind of just what's going on with it as far as looking for different corridors?
Building new facilities, new rights of way through a very densely populated area like Metro Atlanta is a very, very expensive and very long endeavor because of the land acquisitions and the cost of those land acquisitions in addition to the construction. So we have not looked at exact widening of all of these corridors throughout Henry County. It would take far longer than it would take, and more money than it would take, to give this express lane option. The other thing about adding free lanes, anywhere we add them, they will be congested in a growing area like this within 3 to 5 years, and express lanes will have continuous flow for 50 years.
I guess I'm looking at, people talk about I-3, people talk about the interstate over on, wherever we go. We used to have the Governor's Road Improvement Program and some of those routes. I just kind of curious, okay, what's happening with those, and what do we got to do to look for alternate routes? Because when you showed that map that had all the counties in South Georgia, if they can go up through the west side of the state or the east side of the state, that helps those areas of the state grow economically and help to spread that transportation out a little further than just trying to funnel it through that one tight spot.
We have, in the past, probably about 10, maybe 15 years ago, examined a west bypass around Metro Atlanta. The cost for that today would be in the hundreds of billions of dollars to do that.
Just money. That's the thing.
It's just money.
Does this projection at all contemplate autonomous, specifically moving to trucks, to truck traffic, and be able to move that truck traffic at night, as opposed to having to rely on humans during the day? Is there any modeling that's adjusting based on the rapid deployment of autonomous vehicles?
There is not yet, because it's not adopted en masse in order to make a big enough difference. The thing about autonomous trucks, there are many things, but what really matters is what's on either end of that trip. Even if the vehicle is able to move safely down the highway without a driver, there has to be somebody at the beginning and end of that trip to accept that cargo so that it is secure and not stolen. So there's many factors that go into autonomy.
Two thoughts as we close. One, I have not named my most important project, and I specifically waited until you
I
were
got
up
my
here.
pen ready,
Georgia 400,
certainly.
free lanes through Forsyth County. We paid for 80% of our existing third lane about a decade ago, and I'd love to see as we go further north or some of that money, I would like to see those be free lanes. The last thing I'll say, this will be the last amended budget that we see from Governor Kemp. We'll obviously have the big budget from Governor Kemp, and there's a lot that we'll remember this governor by. The way he navigated COVID, a lot of the policy positions he took in his 8 years, but the investment in this particular area of the future of the state is something that will probably outlive all of us. And so just want to publicly thank him for the leadership he's taken on this issue. It's something that we have all advocated for and talked about in our specific districts, but the injection of multiple billions of dollars in capital into the infrastructure of the state is something that was needed, and it needed a leader that would get it done, and he got it done. So I know you work closely with him, so thank you for your work with that as well. So if there's no other questions, we'll be adjourned. Thank you all for being here today.